What will make the internet so powerful is convergence. In the future, TV, radio and newspapers will all be available on demand from anywhere in the world. Hundreds of newspapers are now available online. The Newcastle Journal was first printed in 1739. Over 250 years later, the online edition can be read by anyone with access to the internet. There are no printing or delivery costs, and the news is updated continuously.
There was a reservation among some of us that actually putting so much content online every day might actually damage the sale of the newspaper. But in fact the reverse has occurred. The sales of the newspaper are increasing and the web audience. And at this early stage it appears that we're finding two different audiences with it. And of course, being online, a lot of our audience comes from abroad and from outside the area. So we're reaching new people, and that's got to be good for us.
Already it's possible to see TV news from around the world on the internet. At the moment, the pictures and sound can be a bit basic, but it's improving rapidly. Viewers can watch live broadcasts or see a recording without the need for a video. You can even pick the news items you want to see, creating your own bulletin. It's a hint of things to come. Spencer Hudson is a mathematician and futurologist at Teesside University.
Change is nothing new to any of us. We deal with change and adapting to elements within the environment every day of our lives. And our ancestors previously have also had the same types of problems to face. The thing that's different about nowadays and what's changing now is not necessarily that, but it's just the speed at which change is occurring. We've seen advances in my own lifetime, from technology advancing every couple of years through now to advances being made every several months. Every couple of months there'll be something new coming out that we have to adapt to.
Digital TV is going to be coming along quite shortly, and I think that's got big implications for all the media. All the different kinds of strands of communication are starting to converge, and so newspapers are starting to look at sound and vision, TV starting to look at text services, and when digital radio comes along, it'll be technically possible to send pictures down radio waves. So everything's going to be much more blurred than it is at present.
This blurring of media boundaries is already underway. Now anybody with a home computer and camera can broadcast pictures of themselves around the world. Football clubs in the region have been among the first businesses to see the potential of broadcasting to their fans directly. Major soccer clubs like Newcastle United have already begun setting up their own TV stations. In the near future, clubs will be able to feed out match coverage and club news directly via the internet, with fans paying a fee to watch.
The one thing we can't do is squeeze the genie back into the bottle. We have that problem with us now. Individual governments are already failing to cope with the problems of access to material that they don't like. We may have to develop more tolerance towards these things. After all, we don't know very much about what arrives through the mail on people's doorsteps. But we are enabling all sorts of criminal activity as well as good activity, and controlling it will require whole new paradigms, new forms of punishment, new understanding of what moral codes are about. There's a lot of development work to do in those areas.
With the advent of the internet and the way in which it can distribute information and technology in general, we can find that democracy can be improved, because essentially we could have a vote every day on any issue if we so desired. Now, whether or not we would obviously want to do that is another matter.
If virtual reality can be harnessed to virtual touch, virtual sex with a computer may be possible. If the experience is entirely artificial, pornography laws may be powerless to control it. But commerce on the internet is not restricted to adult material. Most of Britain's large retailers now have websites. Some supermarkets allow online customers to order their weekly groceries and have them home delivered. A van can carry the shopping of up to 30 families, saving on car journeys and pollution. The fashion industry has been at the forefront of online shopping. Internet presentation and marketing is now taught at the University of Northumbria. It's seen as an essential skill for the new crop of trendsetters.
online shopping will be second nature to people. So what we have to remember is that all our measurements will be held on computer, so we can go home. If we decide we want a new suit, all we have to do is through virtual reality technologies, whether it be something like a touch screen or a virtual reality glove, we can choose the fabrics. Also, there'll be something like an online colour consultancy. So we just have to say we've got blue eyes, brown hair, we're a Leo, we've got a good personality, we're fun-loving, etc. And that the garment we want is maybe for autumn, winter, 2022. And the online colour consultancy will be able to give us some sort of idea of the colours that we should be choosing.
Information age materials are expected to bring a revolution to clothes design in the next 20 years. Self-mending, intelligent fabrics are predicted, with shape, texture and colour controlled by embedded microchips.
One of the most interesting developments has been microencapsulation, whereby chemicals or vitamins, perfumes can be trapped inside of the fabrics. Fabrics are going to smell nice. For medicinal purposes, they're going to benefit the wearer. Also, there'll be self-mending, where the iron will be very helpful because the iron would then bond together the fibres and mend it. Maybe in the future we may be using microchips, which will be found in garments and in footwear. So almost making the telephone obsolete, because you could then store and transfer information from one to another.
The young designers graduating from the region's universities this year will be reaching the height of their careers by the year 2020. They're in a better position than most to guess what the trends will be.
This generation that's moving up now wants to experiment a lot more colour and be very individual. I think that's what is going to happen in the future.
The way I see it going is that things are getting less and less and less, and it's just becoming like minimal. Everything just seems to be so simple that I think that the fussiness and loads and loads and loads of attention is long gone, and I think it's small details or just simple and comfortable.
And then when we've chosen our garments, all we have to do is then choose our fashion accessories, which maybe the watch that takes our pulse and checks on our health status, and it could be our jewellery that communicates with other people. It tells us what time the next film's on. So it's all going to be, it's very new and different at the moment, and people do see it as very sort of sci-fi.
Forecasting the future is big business. Graham Leach is a professional futures analyst with the Henley Centre in London. He's just produced a major report on the year 2020 for Barclays Life.
Futurology has acquired a poor reputation over many years. And we think that's partly justified, because in many areas of technology forecasting, the failings have been really quite significant and very bad. Also, in the realm of economic forecasting, failing to spot recessions, failing to spot recoveries, failing to really understand the dynamics of the housing market in the early 1990s has led to people again being cautious and poo-pooing the idea of looking at the future. But that really is only part justified, because after all entrepreneurs are futurologists in some sense. They're looking at the future and saying, I've seen an opportunity, I've seen something somebody else hasn't seen. So people naturally look at the future, and people are naturally futurologists. People look at their own family situation, their own work situation, and they're saying, what might the future hold for me?
There's been no shortage of visions of the future on film. In the 1936 classic, Things to Come, Alexander Korda tried to imagine what Britain might look like in 2036, less than 40 years from now. He predicted we would all be living in underground cities powered by artificial sunlight. Rubbish, graffiti and unemployment had no place in the new utopia, which was conceived before the realities of pollution and the energy crisis began to bite. We are now more than ever aware of the need to conserve energy and the environment. The reality is that by the year 2020, houses will probably look much like they do today. but they are likely to be more eco-friendly, with recycled building materials and greater use of wind and solar power. A pioneering building on Tyneside is showing the way for industrial and residential constructions of the future. The Groundwork Centre in Hebburn is powered entirely by its own wind turbine and solar panels. Inside, surplus metro rails support the roof. It's heated by underground water and sewage is treated on site. The building's designers are convinced the energy-saving techniques used in the centre will have to be adopted by builders in the next century, as homebuyers become more conscious of the cost of running an inefficient house.
It's certainly possible to construct housing which operates at virtually no cost. We are only now getting the full benefit from heavy insulation, better glazing systems that allow heat in but don't allow heat out. And utilising the heat sources that are already within the building. Yes, for some reason we always look at the capital cost of building a house. What isn't taken into consideration is the running cost of the house. It's funny, we've started to do that with motor cars. Now the MPG is important. If that philosophy was put into the housing market, yes, things would be dramatically different.
In Things to Come, houses are shown with acres of polished floors and transparent furniture. But one prediction the film makes, which has almost come true, is the flat-screen TV. While it's still not possible to make them quite this thin, a North Tyneside company is making widescreen TVs just a few inches thick.
Well, the main advantage is it's a brighter display, brighter picture. It's flat, perfectly flat. It's never out of focus. It's not scanned, which means you don't get the flickering that you normally get with a TV line-generated screen. And, of course, it's very thin and can be positioned against a wall or hung from a wall, even.
You're watching North East Tonight. It's July the 16th, 2020. And here's Bob Johnson with the weather forecast. And I must say, Bob, you're looking younger than ever.
Hey?
But it's comforting to know some things will never change.
Right, yes. I thought you said you're looking younger than ever.
Right.
At Teesside University, a team of scientists is working on the control systems that will allow us to operate multiple flat screens in our homes of the future.
Here we have a CD player. You could select it from your screen here and drag it across to the middle screen, which is where it becomes active. This object is a lot larger on the screen, which means you can interact with this object. So on your remote control, you would touch a CD and it starts playing. To move to the next track, you could run your finger across and flip to the next track, and likewise go back to the previous track. Once you've finished with the CD, you could just drag it off your screen and it explodes and falls away into the distance to show that you've ejected it and it's no longer active. Then you might perhaps want to watch a movie, so you'd select your film spool from the side window, drag it to the middle and it becomes active, and this film spool spins around to show that you're actually watching the movie, and then it comes on the screen there. And when you've finished, you could either drag the movie back, or once it's finished playing, it goes back of its own accord and rests back on the left window.
What we're trying to do in our research is to bring that kind of feeling of comfort and understanding back into products, so that people aren't intimidated by technology. In the past, we've always had products which have a great deal of tactile feedback, levers and buttons and things which have mechanical links, which is really nice because then you get all this kind of feedback as to what's actually happening. We could see what a product actually is change quite significantly. If we take the example of a heating controller, for example, what might happen is that might be connected to some computer somewhere, and someone could offer you the service. They could say, well, we can reduce your heating bills by 20% purely by knowing what the weather's going to be like the next day. So they could control your radiators and your boiler, and that could hold true for a whole range of products that you might have in the home. I think what might happen from there on is that products might start to become virtual, in that we won't actually have the real product in the home. I mean, the telephone is a little bit like that at the moment. There's all sorts of features on a telephone which don't actually sit inside the telephone itself, they sit in a computer somewhere else.
Virtual products existing in virtual reality. It's a new vocabulary for the new millennium. VR is a concept that's hard to get to grips with, but it's one that will dominate the next 20 years as scientists and artists collaborate to create a new universe in cyberspace. Teesside University is at the forefront of VR technology in the region. Here they have recreated the city centre of Middlesbrough, complete with shops, people and even traffic. Like the first moving pictures 100 years ago, VR cinema is sometimes less than convincing, but its potential is clear. Once sound, smell and touch is added, it will be a total immersion experience, almost indistinguishable from reality, something film has never achieved.
I think the total immersion experience is really on its way. I think we're very close to it here. If we sit right in the hotspot in here, we feel as if we are there. Perhaps visually, if you really stop and think about it, it's not quite there. The shadows aren't there, some of the reflections aren't there. But as we move on, even in the next 2 years, we're going to have scenarios where the virtual world is as good as the real world for many, many purposes. Virtual set design, stage sets, virtual scenes, climbing mountains, going rowing. The activities we might not be able to do because we can't get to that special place. The things we dreamt we could do, and as we get older, that we might like to try and do, but it would be too dangerous to try. It will be virtual, but actually you'll think it's real.
The Teesside University team have also been experimenting with VR headsets that allow the viewer to look around the virtual world in any direction, and polarised glasses that can turn an ordinary computer screen into a 3D world that you can fly through and examine from any angle. This is a planned redevelopment of the Princess Mary Hospital in Newcastle by Yule Homes. Customers can take a tour of the interior of any of the apartments, even though they are not yet completed. They can even see what wall colours go best with their furniture. In the future, homes will be built to order. Virtual reality can also take you into space, but while most of us would be content to view the Earth from orbit with a VR headset, thousands are queuing up to actually blast off and see it for real. Ingrid Kennedy of North Tyneside is one of them. A keen amateur astronomer, she's paid a deposit for a night in a hotel on the moon in 2017. She's been told it could cost as much as £40,000 for the trip, but she's determined to be among the first.
I've always found it interesting that there's billions of stars out there and that we're just like one minuscule part of it. I just think it would be brilliant. The view would be to die for. The zero gravity, that would be an experience. And I'll be only one of 10,000 people, so it's very limited. So at least I can say I've done it.
Would-be space tourists can already get a taste of the view from the window of their orbiting hotel by visiting NASA's website on the internet, where live TV pictures are beamed from the space shuttle during missions. Groups of school children can even get the chance to operate the camera themselves. For this class of senior students at Prudhoe in Northumberland, the countdown can't come fast enough.
What information do we need after that? Do you think this would be like maybe a 8 days, 22 hours? You want to do that? These are all the targets, straight. Oh yeah. Yeah, well I've got the name down and I saw that. Have you got the website?
Experience of going up into space, learning about things, looking down at the Earth from up there, just be something that anyone my age would just dream about.
I think I'd love to be able to see what the Earth looked like from up in orbit, like on the moon or something.
I think everybody's got their dreams and aspirations about space and what it'd be like living in space.
And it's not just school children who are dreaming of leaving the Earth by 2020. In recent years, the Northeast has seen some ambitious attempts by amateur enthusiasts to get a private rocket into space. Among them is Tynesyde's Derek Willis.
Technologically, it's certainly possible, but on the grounds of costs, I just don't see it as being viable. Now, for example, the hotel would have to weigh around 1,000 tonne to be able to get enough people in there. I've roughly calculated that the project would cost something like £50 billion to do. If you built a shuttle which could carry 200 passengers at £40,000 per passenger, you'd have to launch 3 shuttles every day just to cover the interest charges.
If private space travel does become a reality by 2020, it may be that only the wealthiest will be able to afford it. But as this Russian cosmonaut recently demonstrated, the idea of holidays in space is one that just won't go away.